Welcome everyone. Byron here with Sarah. Sarah, welcome.
Hello.
Nice to be with you today.
Yeah.
And thanks for
too.
once again, third year in a row, speaking at Content Marketing Conference.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Bringing wisdom and insight to the world.
Oh, well, you know, that's what we do.
Tell us a little bit about Bixa Research, your new agency.
Yes, my new agency, Bixa. We do market research and UX research for big companies who are looking to understand their customers better.
Got it.
And especially, we're specialized especially in, especially, that sounds good, but yeah, we specialize in Gen Z research.
Got it.
Particularly, but we do all sorts of research.
Your new book is out. Congratulations.
Thank you. I actually flew to the Amazon to launch the book on Amazon.
Wow, that's fun.
So you can see the launch video on social media.
So I know you're super deep with Gen Z, and
Yes.
we could talk about Gen Z for quite some time.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, tell me a little bit about the book itself. How long did it take you to create the book? I know you put your heart and soul into it, and you had a lot of years leading up to it, gathering data and research, and you were working, of course, in a great agency for a long time. So you have this introspective. How did you put this all together? Tell us a little bit about the book.
So the book came about, this is Instabrain, and I realized that a lot of marketers out there were caught up in this millennial whirlwind, and they were missing this incredible generation that is larger in size and arguably a much larger financial power than millennials. And what happened was that I started interviewing these kids, and I've been hanging out with teenagers for about a year and a half, and we started interviewing and doing surveys and mobile diary studies and all sorts of different types of research, and they were behaving so much differently than millennials. Like even kids that were just a few years older, they had different, they made purchase decisions in different ways. They went about researching and buying things in different ways. They went about communicating with brands in different ways. And I thought that there had to be a book that kind of detailed all that research and taught marketers about the trends that they're going to see in their future customers. And even if, and sorry.
No, I've got like 500 questions on the top of my head, but keep going, go ahead.
And even if you're not marketing directly to Gen Z, they are impacting every other generation. Even my mother, I was having dinner with my mother, and she's sitting there and she's like scrolling on her phone, and I was like, what are you doing there? Because it's not like her to do that. I mean, she's almost 70 years old. She got an iPhone just so she could FaceTime my kids. And so she's sitting there and she's scrolling, and I was like, are you on Facebook? And she was like, oh God, no, like, oh, the security with that's horrible. No, I'm not on Facebook. She goes, I'm in the Weight Watchers app. It's my online tribe. And so this woman who, I have literally heard this woman say the phrase, I'm gonna go to the Google on the Foxfire in the past. So to see
Foxfire.
A woman like that be so influenced by the digital habits of kids who are much, much younger than her was amazing to see.
Yeah. Nice to know Google's a noun and an adjective and a verb. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
But we'll thank your mom for that. So the book itself, tremendous amount of research and literally spans probably multiple years of your life. I mean, it goes back to data that you've probably been pulling and gathering and harvesting.
For about a year and a half, of my data, and also there's a lot of research. There's probably over, I think there's almost 150 footnotes in here. So it's pulling from a lot of different sources that have done other types of research as well. So, but a lot of the stories in here are from my experience, and there are quotes and stories from research participants. So it's written in a really fun way where you get to see exactly what these kids are saying.
Yeah. What's the biggest surprise about the Gen Z? By the way, we're so tired of talking about millennials. And even probably millennials are tired of us talking about millennials, right? And how many more jokes can we hear about millennials? But tell us some excitement with Generation Z. What are some of the interesting discoveries that are really turning your head upside down and saying, wow, this is really different, this is unusual and quite intriguing or interesting?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest ones is how they curate their social media presences as brands. If millennials were known as the oversharing generation, this Generation Z is one of like painstaking curation. They have multiple social media accounts, multiple Instagram accounts even, and they're curating each specific one for various purposes. Even kids as young as 13 years old have business accounts because they're like, oh, I'm gonna be a photographer and this is my photography account and I'm cultivating my audience. And they're tailoring their different accounts to and curating their content on those different accounts for different purposes.
Interesting.
And that really fascinated me.
Twitter announced this week in sort of an informal way with a TED Talk from their CEO that they were going to be trying to move to a model where people can follow topics and not just people, kind of an interesting concept. I meant to talk about that this morning in my keynote, but I ran out of time for good reasons.
I don't know if it's gonna work.
That's interesting. What I was going to ask you, how does that relate to Generation Z? Do you think Generation Z is opening multiple accounts and having different almost personas and personalities to follow different things or hang with different people or have multiple groups? And what's your thought on that?
If I do a research study with a group of people, say, who are interested in like beauty, for example, a group of Gen Z interested in beauty, I'll go and I'll talk to Gen Zers about beauty, and somebody will say, I'll be like, oh, well, what do you follow on Instagram? They'll be like, oh, I follow James Charles and Jeffree Star, and they'll list out a whole bunch of personalities, a whole bunch of creators. They don't follow brands on Instagram. They're following people, and that's really one of the key things that marketers are going to have to start tapping into in terms of when they're marketing items, because this generation is really following personalities more so than brands. They're more authentic. They're real people. They like to see the kind of the slice of life stories that go along with them. It makes sense.
Imagine thinking of people as real thinkers and original, and wow, that sounds like I want to be part of that generation. Bring it on. So more surprises, do you think, that are going to come as we surface more data, and particularly as they reach a higher purchasing power level? What do you think is going to happen then?
I think what's amazing is how entrepreneurial this group is, and much more so than millennials. And you think of millennials as wanting to change the world and driving change. But this generation is a generation of doers. Like, they not only want to change the world and they want to do good things in the world, but they have the drive to make it happen. Like, this is a generation of implementers. 61% say that they want to start their own businesses.
Wow.
And that's a huge deal. Like, as we think about the future economy and we think about what's coming down the line, that we're going to have all these small business owners, and a lot of them are doing it in high school. Like, they're starting businesses. I've talked to, I met with this one girl who makes thousands of dollars a day playing with Barbies on YouTube and filming it. And a day.
Does she make?
She plays with Barbie and Ken in the dollhouse, and they film it. And she's an influencer on YouTube, and she's sponsored. And a lot of these kids are doing similar things, or trying to cultivate an audience and get paid and sponsored to do things like that. And then there's other kids who I met someone just this week who was selling. She would go buy thrift store clothes and then was reselling them on an Instagram account.
Profitable once again?
Yeah, very profitable.
Was she building story around the pieces she would buy, or do anything different, or was she just literally flipping products?
But she had an online. She had a presence and an identity on Instagram, and was making was showing her fashion hauls, and she did have a story around them, and was making money selling them. And so there's a lot of very unique businesses that are popping up.
Do you have any theories on why Gen Z is like they are? I mean, there's been a lot of analysis on millennials and why they are, and you know, pampering parents, saying yes to everything and including them in party life at a young age, and then resisting that, or having this sort of, anyway, there's all kinds of theories about millennials.
Yeah, so
but is
there's-
there anything that strikes you as something that could generalize why they are the way they are? Why
There's
are
a
they
number of
independent?
factors, yeah.
Why they want to be entrepreneurs, or what's the thinking behind that?
Well, the first big driver is the fact that they were born into a recession instead of a boom. Millennials were born into this boom. They were, when these Gen Z kids were young, they were born after, a lot of them after 9/11. They were born into a recession. They saw their parents lose jobs or take pay cuts or be clipping coupons. They have a different perception of money. They want more value out of what they're buying. They do more extensive research on the things they're buying. They're actually even though they're socially liberal, they're very fiscally conservative, which is an interesting balance that we haven't seen in the past. They've also seen millennials, come out of college with a mountain of debt, and they're like, I'm not going to be like that. That's not going to be me. So they've seen what credit card debt has done, can do to people. They've seen that. They've also grown up. They won't remember a time before a black president or before female presidential candidates. So their notion of diversity and social justice is much different than it has been than other generations have seen. They're hungry for work, probably because growing up in a recession, that's part of it. But they're hungry for work. They're starting businesses, and they're doing that right out of, while they're in high school, and they're doing it right out of college, and yeah.
What concerns you about either Generation Z or the economic effect that Generation Zs may have, either positive or negative, on the world? Are they going to spend much less money? Are they going to be more frugal? Are they going to have lower expectations of their earning potential? I just made all of that up. There's no research in any question I just asked. But give us some insights on any concerns you might have, or how you think things could change.
I don't know that they're more frugal. They will spend money when they see the value in it. Okay. So they're not cheap.
Yeah.
They just do a lot more research and expect to get more value out of what they're buying.
Got it.
So I don't know if it's like the frugality necessarily. What I am concerned about is how fast they're making decisions. They multitask with an enormous speed. Their brains have actually evolved and physically changed because they have grown up with screens and screens and screens and screens and visual inputs at every corner. And they process visual inputs far more quickly than even millennials just a few years older than they do.
Wow.
Their attention span, the attention span of millennials is about 12 seconds. The attention span of a Gen Zer is about 8 seconds.
Wow.
So it's a huge shift. Millennials can juggle about 3 screens at a time. So they can be playing a video game, reading a Reddit thread, and talking to somebody on FaceTime at the same time. Gen Z can do that with 5 screens.
Wow.
And store all that information into their short-term memory. So my only concern would be how quickly they're making decisions and how these snap judgments are affecting them. When we made decisions as kids, it was a much longer processing time. Yeah. On social media, maybe they see somebody they don't like on social media, and they quickly send a mean message about them on social media, and very, very catty, very quick. If that were our generation, when we were growing up, you would have to wait until you went to school the next day. There would be some sort of processing time, maybe that comment is not such a good idea. Yeah. So they're making decisions much more quickly, for good or bad.
Yeah, got it. What's next for you and your agency? You're going to conquer new things. What kind of clients and customers
Yeah.
you're looking to work with, and what kind of problems are they solving?
Yeah, I mean, we solve problems that range from, hey, why are kids not searching? You know, from big search engines who are like, hey, why are kids not searching? What are they doing on their phones if they're not searching? So we do more market research like that, and then we do very specific product research and UX research. Like, hey, can you take this product and go find out what how my customers use it, what's working, what doesn't work.
Very cool.
So a couple different types of research.
Great start.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today. It's
Yes.
been great to have you.
Thank you.
Indeed. We'll look forward to
Yep.
yet another year. We got 4 is a lucky number for some people, me included.
yeah.
So we'll look for your 4th year next year, Sarah.
Absolutely.
Right
So
on.
this is InstaBrain.
Go, Sarah. Go Instabrain. Thanks, everyone.